Hello, welcome to Measure for Thoughts. I am your host, Maddie Morton, and I am here with BYU Idaho student guest star Victoria Morris.
Hi everyone!
Victoria, thanks for joining me for the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Of course, we're glad to have you here. Today, we will go over with our audience what makes a great leader. Specifically, what is a good, better, best leader? Victoria, how do you describe a great leader? What examples have you had in your life with leaders?
For me, a great leader is somebody who would be willing to do any task that they assign their team, and specifically someone who emulates and tries to be like Jesus Christ. The first leader I could think of, it's not a person in my life. I've had many great leaders in my life, but the first one I could think of was King Benjamin from the Book of Mormon, because he knew what was best for his people and he followed that. He served them and he cared for them, and he was not selfish in trying to keep power. He was just trying to make sure that his people did the best, and he was emulating traits of Jesus Christ and amplifying those as much as he could. So I think a great leader is trying to be like Jesus Christ continuously.
I love that. And even so with leadership, the best leaders need to have compassion on others. Depending on how much they fall short, they also need to be able to delegate towards others and willing to take a chance depending on how the results go.
Exactly.
Awesome. And so in this play, Measure for Measure, Shakespeare manages to capture this imagery of great leaders by using biblical parallel connections. We will go more in depth about that here as we look over some of the passages of this play. And so as we are looking it over, further on as we read this upcoming Act 1, Scene 1, I will read the Duke while Victoria will read Aeschylus. And so in Measure for Measure, Act 1, Scene 1, the Duke discusses with Aeschylus to have Angelo lead for the time while he is on a business trip. They proudly say that Angelo is a great and compassionate guy, perfect to lead the people. For the audience's point of view, we know nothing about Angelo or what kind of character he is until later on in the play. And we will see this within the first few pages of that interaction. Aeschylus,
My lord,
of government the properties to unfold, would seem in me to affect speech and discourse, since I am put to know that your own science exceeds in that the list of all advice my strength can give you, then no more remains, but that to your sufficiency as your worth is able, and let them work the nature of our people, our cities' intuitions, and the terms for common justice, you're as pregnant in as art and practice hath enriched any that we remember. There is our commission, from which we would not have you warp. Call hither, I say, bid come before us Angelo. What figure of us think you he will bear? For you must know, we have with special soul elected him our absence to supply, lent him our terror, dressed him with our love, and given his deputation all the organs of our own power. What think you of it?
if any in Vienna be of worth, to undergo such ample grace and honor, it is Lord Angelo.
And so it is fascinating in this first act that the Duke summons Angelo. Angelo, within this later on, when he does come to the Duke, he feels like he needs to be something else, and that the Duke is trying to mold him into what the Duke sees is a great leader and his definition of that. And so it's interesting that the Duke wants to paint a good leader so that everyone can reach their capacity, but he won't allow Angelo to showcase that until later on. I believe great qualities of a person must be seen on the outside.
As well as the inside?
As well as the inside.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. It's totally fair.
And so, as we get to scene 3, Act 3, Scene 1, it's interesting that Angelo is put in charge. As we get closer to Act 3, he's already wanting to have justice because he's trying to enforce more of the law. He wants everyone who has made even the tiniest mistake be punished for it.
Like a Pharisee would say, something a Pharisee would say.
Angelo is very much, in this context, a Pharisee.
Alrighty.
So this point of the play, where all he sees is justice and has no definition of mercy from this time. And he has already sent Claudio to prison, wanting him dead for having sexual relations with a woman outside of marriage. And to this extent, he is a hypocrite because he has made so much mistakes too of similar kinds that makes him have no right to judge Claudio for this type of sin.
And while this sin isn't great, it does not warrant physical death.
It should not warrant.
It should not warrant physical death.
No,
no,
not
it
at
should
all.
not.
And so when we come to this point in Act 3, Scene 1, the Duke is becoming a better leader, while Angelo is seen to be a good leader, but not at all better or best in any form, because the Duke wants to start to have more compassion on his people, and we'll see this as he's talking to Claudio. And so I will read the Duke while Victoria will read Claudio. So then, you hope of pardon from Lord Angelo?
The miserable have no other medicine, but only hope. I have hope to live and am prepared to die.
Be absolute for death, either death or life, shall thereby be the sweeter. Reason thus with life, if I do lose thee, I do lose a thing that none but fools would keep. A breath thou art, circle to all the sky influences, that doth this habitation where thou keepest hourly afflict. Merely thou art death's fool, for him thou labourest by thy flight to shun, and yet runnest toward him still. Thou art not noble, for all thou accommodations that thou bearest are nursed by baseness. Thou'rt by no means valiant. And so by the time we get to Act 5, the Duke is finally revealed from his disguise, and Angelo and the other officers don't recognize the Duke right away.
That kind of goes against your statement of earlier, that our leaders should be able to be recognized from the outside.
Yep. And so to some extent, this determines how well do we know our leaders. If we cannot recognize them, then we must know them not at all. And I think this is very true that one's intentions as a leader comes from the inside, and that's something that is hard to recognize on an outward appearance.
That's fair. Sometimes it may be necessary for leaders to have to disguise themselves in order to get somewhere safely, but it doesn't mean they're detracting from who they are.
Definitely.
It just depends on their intent, I think.
No, I would definitely agree with that. And so in Acts 5, Angelo, Lucio, and Claudio are all requested by the Duke to marry the person that they had sexual relations with and made a pledge to be married to that person. In the end, Claudio and Lucio are the two that are not pleased to get married. They would rather die instead of be married to their partner. And it proves that they have no loyalty. And in the end, I would say the Duke has proven himself to be at his best of leadership. Where even though like the best can be even with flaws, there's still a best leader in this play. And so I will again read the Duke, and Victoria will read Lucio and Angelo. Thou art the first knave that e'er matched a duke. First provost, let me bell these gentle three. Speak not away, sir, for the friar and you must have a word anon. Lay hold on him.
This may prove worse than hanging. And that was Lucio.
Yep. And then for the Duke, what you have spoke, I pardon. Set you down, will borrow place of him. Sir, by your leave, hast thou, or word, or wit, or impudence, that yet can do the office? If thou hast, rely upon it till my tale be heard, and holds no longer out.
I will now be reading Angela from here on out. O my dread Lord, I should be guiltier than my guiltiness to think that I can be undiscernible, when I perceive your grace, like power divine, hath looked upon my passes. Then, good prince, no longer session to hold upon my shame, but let my trial be mine own, and confession, immediate sentence, and then and sequence death, is all the grace I beg.
Come hither, Mariana. Say, wast thou e'er contracted to this woman?
I was, my lord.
Go take her hence, and marry her instantly. And thank you guys so much for joining us for Measure for Thoughts, reading through Measure for Measure. I'm Maddie Morton, and this is Victoria Morris, and thank you for joining us.
Bye!